All right. Well, welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our Young Professional Network event, Understanding Personalities for Career Success. My name is Coral Svetnoff. I'm a member of your YPN Advisory Council. Before we get started, just want to give a shout out to our program sponsors. We have Gibson, Indiana, Michigan Power. Their support helps makes events like these possible. So I'm happy to introduce my colleague and friend, Adrielle Robertson. Adrielle owns her own HR consulting business, Starfish Leadership Coaching, and she is also HR manager at WellPet in Mishawaka. She has been in human resources for over 17 years and has held multiple leadership roles. She's a member of our local Michiana SHRM chapter and has served a variety of volunteer roles over the years, including chapter president. Adrielle is also a certified Myers Briggs practitioner, and her passion is to help develop individuals and help them realize their full potential. So today, Adrielle is going to help us walk through the personality assessments, types, traits, so that we can identify the motivators for ourselves and others. By better understanding others' behaviors and personalities, we can build stronger relationships that lead to growth and opportunity. So as she's doing the presentation, if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A, and we will leave some time at the end of the presentation for question and answers. So I'm going to pass it off to Adrielle.
Thank you, Coral. Very nice introduction. Hi, everybody. Glad to be here today. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. Personalities and understanding, why people do what they do is always been something that fascinated me. My undergrad is, I have a minor in psych. And it's always been something that I've sought out and looked for ways to better understand people, just better get to know people. And I believe it truly does help in business when you know and understand why people do what they do. It helps to build relationships, which we all know relationships are one of the most important things to being successful in business or really anywhere. Whether you're an introvert or extrovert or a small talker or not a small talker, you still have to have the ability to build relationships, and that is what we're going to talk about today. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me get my presentation. All right, so like Coral said, I have been in HR for 18 years now. I started actually in management in retail at what's now Macy's. It used to be Ellis Ayers. Probably none of you remember that, but I have a bachelor's in criminal justice and psychology. I have my MBA with a concentration in HR. Obviously passionate about understanding people, what makes them tick, why they make the decisions and choices they do. I am a by the book ISTJ, but often present as an ESTJ. When it comes to Myers-Briggs, I am also a type 8. So that will be relevant when we get into talking about each of the different personality types. So the beautiful thing about people is that you will never meet two of the same. Many people might share similar experiences. They may have similar education, enjoy the same things, but there's always something unique about them. When we look at all the reasons why people are who they are and do what they do, it's typically rooted in 3 areas: genetics, your nature versus nurture, environment, and then also childhood and life trauma. We have all seen 2 siblings that were raised in the same household by the same parents that grow up and are completely different people. And isn't that fascinating? Like, how is it that you're raised the exact same way and yet you still turn out completely different? Well, personalities. Even when you look at twins, you can tell there's different personalities, even in identical twins. Coral can agree to that. So how do you learn to read people better when there are so many differences? This is a question that psychologists have tried to figure out for years, centuries even. Well, we're not going to unlock the, super secret or a secret recipe to reading people today. We will explore some ways that will help you to understand yourself, which in turn will better help you to understand others, what makes them tick, how to read body language, how to understand where they're coming from, how to appreciate the people that annoy you, and the reasons why you get along with other people so well. So, the first part is knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Aristotle said it best himself. When you dig into your own personality, you begin to understand why you think and feel the way you do, why you make certain decisions, why you associate with one group much easier than another. With the knowledge of your own personality, you can begin to understand others. And this in turn helps you build relationships that will help you be successful in business, in your career. Whether you are in sales, customer service, manufacturing, building relationships is imperative. Even for those whose careers are more solitary, you still have a manager, you still have other people that you're providing a service to or for. So how do you get to know yourself? Like really know yourself? Well, for starters, you have to take the good with the bad. We all have opportunities or weaknesses. We all have good traits. It's all about knowing and being self aware of those that will help you to be better in knowing others. Everyone has good qualities, everyone has bad qualities. So let's talk about owning the bad qualities, understanding them, recognizing them, and then working around them and advancing your better qualities so that your weaknesses don't catch you up. How many people have taken a personality assessment just for fun on the web? Outside of the ones you took for me today, how many people have gone out and actually just went through and took some personality tests just to see what they said about them? Anybody out there? Any ones that you thought were really good?
I see people raising their hands, but feel free to unmute yourself and jump on.
Yep. I see some chats. Enneagram, okay. Harrison assessment disc, insights, all good stuff. Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, yep. So there's tons of them out there and you see them all over social media, like, what color are you today? What, all of those things. And all of those combined together, as you do those, you learn a little bit more about you, how people take you, the perception people have of you. And if you're open to the fact that, there's things about you that, annoy people, it's okay. But being aware of that and knowing what those things are can better help you to build relationships with people. So we're going to talk about two popular assessments, Myers-Briggs and Enneagram. But other ones that are very popular are DISC, StrengthsFinder. StrengthsFinder is based on a book, StrengthsFinder 2.0, that was written by Tom Rath. And that, if you purchase the book, you get a free assessment, which that one is pretty interesting as well. But today we're just gonna focus on Myers-Briggs primarily, and then we're gonna touch on Enneagram. And I discovered Enneagram about 2 years ago. And when I took the assessment and I actually paid for the full results, it was crazy how accurate. And I had my husband read it, my friends read it, and they were like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So that is one reason why I like the Enneagram, and we'll talk about it a little bit today. So Myers-Briggs. I was first introduced to Myers-Briggs back in 2005 when I was working for a medical software company in human resources. We had a team of leaders that often had conflict between one another, and it was creating, it was a detriment to the business and getting things done and productivity. So we actually did an MBTI session as a way to help them understand one another to better work together. Well, the session was an eye-opener for everyone, and the results were truly amazing. I mean, just the participation, once you understood and you took the assessment and you realized what you were, and then you realized what your, coworkers and your other people that, you didn't necessarily get along with were, and it brought people together like I've never seen. And that was the first time that I've seen Myers-Briggs. Now, it's crazy when you figure out how to work with people, when you really understand where they're coming from and why they do the things they do. You have a better understanding and a better appreciation for different styles. So the MBTI assessment is rooted in Carl Jung's theory of psychological types. Jung believed that although people's personalities and behaviors seemed random, they were all actually quite consistent and based on how they chose to use their perception and judgment to view the world. Jung believed that people's types do not change. Essentially, you're born with a specific type. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't adapt to your environment. It doesn't mean that, you don't change throughout your lifetime, but this is your preferred method of taking in your world. So when you took this free 16 personality assessment, which is essentially Myers-Briggs, was it accurate? When you read the description of it, did you feel like, yes, it was? Or do you feel like there was a letter off or it just wasn't quite right? If you can go to the chat and let me know what you thought, that'd be great. Spot on. Thought there was a letter off, otherwise accurate. Spot on, INFJ. Lots of spots on. So as I told you earlier in the presentation, I am an EISTJ. And when I say that, when I take the Myers-Briggs assessment, the official assessment, I always come out an ISTJ. We're going to get into exactly what that means shortly, but when I look at the descriptions, and if you guys all check your email, you should have in your inbox an email from the South Bend Chamber with 2 documents. One of them is the Myers-Briggs type summary. When you read through the type summary, if any of you that had where you thought one letter was kind of off or not quite exactly what you thought, see if any of those you relate to better when you read through the summaries. Because at work, I'm an ESTJ. At home, I'm an ISTJ. I am right on the borderline of E and I. So I have tendencies to think out loud, react before I think, and yet I have tendencies of ISTJ, of the order, the control, the things where I'm exhausted after going and doing a networking event. Like I need a break. So you'll find that there's certain things that, you might lean to one side more than another. But overall, when you look at it, you'll have a better understanding of why you do the things you do. So when I do an official MBTI class, everybody takes the assessment before the class, and then they come together and they get their results in the class as the first part. We read through each of their, what their results are, and then we take a look at the type summary and make sure that you truly feel that is aligned. So take a look at the type summary that I sent you. Make sure that if, it doesn't quite feel right, the original, maybe it's, your borderline on another. So Carl Jung stated that perception involves all the ways of becoming aware of things, people, happenings, or ideas. Judgment involves all of the ways of coming to conclusions about what has been perceived. We're going to talk about perceiving and judging within the Myers-Briggs dichotomies. If people differ systematically in what they perceive and in how they reach conclusions, then it is only reasonable for them to differ correspondingly in their interests, reactions, values, motivations, and skills. So Carl Jung really thought that the basis of people and their personalities was more consistent than just the random uniqueness of each individual, but it also is about how you take in your world. So let's get into this here. So preferences, like I said, MBTI is about preferences. Let's do a quick exercise to show you what I mean firsthand. Go ahead and take out a piece of paper and a pen. And what I want you to do, it's very simple, I promise. I want you to write your name with your dominant hand. And then once you've completed that, I want you to take your non-dominant hand and I want you to write your name. So how does it feel to write your name with a non-dominant hand? Maybe awkward? Maybe you have to concentrate a little bit, feels unnatural, takes a lot more thought. It looks like a kindergartner's writing. Yep, exactly. Weak, absolutely. So the same goes with your Myers-Briggs. Whatever you came out in, whatever you probably are, your actual type is your preferred method. Doesn't mean you can't do anything else. It just is what you're naturally going to revert to, especially in stressful situations. Obviously, when people get stressed out, they go to their natural tendencies, right? So no matter how good and how trained you are, putting on your professional face, I say my HR voice, your natural preferences are in there, and in your stressed out situations, they come out much more. So the preferred way versus the non-preferred way. Your dominant hand, natural, neat. It's, nice and strong. You don't have to think about it. It's effortless. That is your preference. Non-preferred, obviously awkward, takes more concentration, more thought. So that's what we're going to get into. What is your preferred method of taking in the world? So the breakdown of Myers-Briggs is there's 4 letters in your type, right? So the first letter is either extroversion or introversion. Now, this is not like your peppy cheerleader type person just, is automatically an extrovert. This is where do you get your energy? It's not that an introvert can't go and network and stand in front of people and talk to people, but when they go home, are they tired and exhausted, or are they energized and ready to go because they interacted with people? So the E or the I obviously represents where you pull in your energy, what you feel most comfortable with. Okay. Now, the second letter is either sensing or intuition. And actually, that should be an N, not an I. How do we take in the information? How do we process it? Do we look for tangibles, facts, and logic? Or do we look at the future and what it could be? The third is how we make decisions. Do we first consider how our decisions will affect others and worry about what people will think, if somebody will be upset or hurt? Or do we look at the facts and think about, we want to make an objective, logical decision? The fourth letter is how we organize our world. It's either judging or perceiving. And this isn't judging as in I judge people. This is how you, again, organize your world. So try to put judgment out of your mind in this regard. So do you like structure? Do you like timelines? Do you have a list just so you can check things off when you complete them? Does everything have to get complete that you start? Then you're probably a J. If you're, I'll get to it, no rush, no problem, go with the flow, change it up, don't care, no real like urgency necessarily to get something done. It'll get done. And not that you don't meet deadlines. You, as a perceiver or as a P, you can meet deadlines. You absolutely can. It's just not as structured in getting there. So these preferences are not good or bad, right or wrong. They are just simply how we perceive our world. I mean, we need people in each category. That's what makes teams successful. I mean, can you imagine if everybody was a sensor? Everybody looked at the tangible facts and only wanted the logical way of doing things? We'd never have, built NASA wouldn't even exist. We wouldn't have ever gone to the moon because nobody would have thought beyond what was right in front of them. So we need both, and everybody has a little bit of both. So it's about tapping into that and understanding what you naturally will go to, and then stepping back and say, okay, I need to look at this a little bit differently than what I normally do, and go to the other side and think about it outside the box, right? So the preferences are what balance life. They are what make teams work together. It's, you compensate for each other's weaknesses. If you think about people you've worked with in the past, my guess is the people that you worked best with and got the most done with were likely like opposite in certain regard, or preferred opposite things. So you guys could compensate and work together. And if one dropped the ball, the other one picked it up, and vice versa. So everyone is good at something and not so good at something else. The key is finding the team that works for you and understanding that the opposites are good. And having people that look at the world differently in a team is what you want. So let's break these down. So let's look at introversion, extroversion, and introversion. So here we see I'm going to close this chat box. Sorry, give me just a second here. So extroversion, they recharge by socializing. Being around people is what makes them, it's like air, right? They make decisions very quickly. They act first, they think later. They always think out loud. They're always, processing out externally versus internally. They're usually outgoing, talkative, like to meet new people. They're expressive, possibly animated, action-oriented, most comfortable with others, and typically have a lot of friends. They might not be super close friends, but a lot of people that they are in contact with on a regular basis. The introversion side, while yes, they can go out and meet new people, and they can go and they can have friends and things like that. It's nothing that say you can't. They recharge though by spending time alone or with a couple of close friends. They like to think about things before they make a decision. They think, and then they act. They listen and observe. They're often very good listeners. They prefer one-on-one conversations as to having a group of people and everybody talking. Much more introspective, looking inside and their inner world. They're a little more quiet and often have a few very close friends that they count on. Now, I like to put these memes up here because if you're a Pinterester or anything like that, there are so many out there. And I encourage you to just type in your type in Pinterest, and you'll find all kinds of funny and interesting and things like that. It's pretty good. So on the extrovert introvert, one, bigger smiler, bigger talker, loves to be around people, active, enthusiastic, maybe a little impulsive, even risk-taking, versus your introvert, a little more reserved, often busy with internal thoughts. The ones that you're like, are you gonna make a decision sometime today? Yep, that's your introvert. Prefers just one or two friends, likes the quiet environment. Like an introvert, as you can see, the stages of socializing for an introvert. You ask them to go to a party or an event or something like that. It's like, oh God, I don't want to. Okay, I'm going to force myself to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm having fun. Okay, yes, I'm putting myself out there. I'm talking to people. Yay. Okay, I've had a drink. It's loosened me up a little bit, feel a little more comfortable. Okay, now I got to go. It's too much. I got to go, got to get out of here. And then you get to your car or you get home and you're like, whew, wow, that was a lot. So I'm sure you can identify more so with one of these or the other. And neither one, again, is bad. Neither one is good. Neither one is better than one another. So you might have tendencies in some of these things on this list that you're like, no, I'm like that on the introversion side, but everything else is extroversion. And that's totally okay. Like I said, with my ENI, I'm very act first, think later, quick decisions, but I'm not necessarily outgoing and talkative to new people. I don't necessarily like meeting new people. It's a lot of, it makes me anxious, but I am very animated. So, but I have a lot of few close friends versus having a lot of acquaintances or a lot of friends. So, you can be a little bit of both. It's okay. All right, so next we have, you're either an S or an N, sensor or sensing or intuition. So sensing is seeing the trees, right? You see the intimate details. You trust the past. What we did before? They're the ones that's the way we've done it. It works. Why are we, going to try to explore some undescribed like vision? They're about facts and details, concrete, reality, practical. It is what it is. Let's do it. Let's do it based on what we know. Then you've got your intuition, your N's. They see the forest. They trust their hunches. They look for patterns and meanings. They think about what it could be, the abstract. Oh, theoretical, the dreamers. And the funny memes. I have the best idea to solve world hunger. The sensor. Okay, well, what are we having for dinner tonight? Very factual. I'm sure you all know people that you are close to that are either N's or S's. Sensing, they see the pieces, then assemble the puzzle. Intuition, they see the puzzle, then assemble the pieces. So again, we definitely need both of these. Our grounders is like I call our sensors, our S's, they ground our intuition, right? Our intuitors. So those people that just dream and they think of all of these great things that could be done are great. And we need those ideas. At the same time, we need people that are like practical and like, all right, so this is what we're going to do. So again, both are good, but I'm sure you can recognize this in people that you work with, as well as people that you just, your friends, your family. It can definitely be like one of the examples we use is if you're a child, right, and you are a intuitor and your parents are both sensors, you're often squashed. Your vision, you've got all these grand ideas, you have a huge imagination, you're always thinking of these great things to do, and you have your imaginary friends, and while your sensing parents are like, no, be logical, sit down and pay attention to the facts. So, but your preference is intuitor, or your N preference will come out, especially as you grow up. So let's go to the next one. There we go. All right, so next we have the T or the F, the thinking versus the feeling. Your thinkers, assertive, cooler, distant, not as warm and friendly, low key, matter of fact. You'll always know where you stand with a thinker. They're not really big praisers. It's not that they don't, value you at all, but it's that they don't feel the need to be praised, so they don't tend to praise others. Uh, they're typically thick-skinned, blunt, very businesslike, professional, possibly, impersonal language. So it's, very objective, not afraid to argue their points. Don't think about like how it affects people when they make a decision. They make a decision based on the majority and how it's going to affect everyone, but not just certain people. Versus your feelers are warm, friendly. They're often sensitive to others' feelings as well as being sensitive themselves. A little more gentle. They're the small talkers. They like to warm up. They're always giving you good feedback. Oh, you look so great in that dress. They will avoid arguments and confrontation. They're always trying to help others. The first thought when they're making a decision is, how will it affect people? Who will be hurt? Who will, what will they think of me? So your thinkers, your feelers, these are two very different groups. And depending on how far you are over on the thinking side or how far you are over on the feeling side, you might have thought to yourself when you've met someone, thinking back, that, gosh, they were so cold and just like, didn't they ever just think of people? Or the opposite, like, do they ever make a decision where they're not so worried about what everybody thinks? Or I love going into meetings where it starts with 10 minutes of small talk and you're like, okay, let's just get to the point. We're here for a meeting. I got things to do. I need to get them done. What are we doing? We're talking about stuff that's irrelevant. I don't care. But yet here we are. We got to be friendly. We got to be nice. So that's a thinking personality, which I am. But I'm sure some of you can relate to that. So that's our T's and our F's. Now we get to the last letter, the judgers or the perceivers. So these guys, it always cracks me up because me and my husband are on the opposite spectrums here. So I'm a judger. I like making decisions. I do it quickly. I like structure, control, systems. I have a huge sticky pad, like a flip chart sticky pad in my garage that we write down everything we need to do because our house is completely being under construction and being renovated. I like to set the goals, write it down, check it off. I'm very deliberate. My workspace is neat and tidy. I don't have things all over. Like I put things back when I get them out, I put them back. The perceiver side likes to leave things a little open-ended. They're a little more procrastinating. They like it. They adapt easily. They're at a leisurely pace, more casual. They start projects. They don't always finish projects. They start lots of projects, but don't always finish them because it's the journey. It's not the destination. We'll get there. So as you can see, I love my, this diagram is the best visual description of a J versus a P. Point A to point B. J's straight there. They've got structure and step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. And P's are like, yeah, I go here, I go there, I'm all over the place a little bit, but I get to the end eventually. Just like I made a schedule for every day of our vacation. Perceivers go, oh God, there's a schedule for every day. So which are you, a judger or a perceiver? Not to say you can't be a little of both, but you probably have a tendency to go one way or the other. So I like like I said, on Pinterest, they have so many good memes and things about MBTI. For example, I'm going to give you a few of these, but MBTIs as spies. So infiltrates the group, but feels bad manipulating them. Your INFJ, ENFJ, ENFPs, ISFJs. Accidentally spills sensitive secrets, the ones that can't keep a secret to save their life. There you are. Doesn't know how to conform to new persona. Sets off a loaded gun by accident. Everyone already suspects they're a spy because they can't lie and they're blunt and set out. Can never trust which side they're spying for. Goes rogue halfway through the mission. INTJs. So, what secretly freaks them out? ISTJ, getting in trouble. Yep, I totally feel that. So take a look at these. These are pretty funny. And you might relate a little too close to them. But it kind of gives you, if you understand who you are, and if you're married or have a significant other, have them take it too, because you'd be surprised as how much you find out about one another just with these 4 letters and the differences and things that you might argue about or things that that drive you nuts about each other might be just between these letters. I've got a couple more here. I love the crimes of the MBTI. Check out your letter or your type. Which one are you? Kind of funny. And then how your MBTI views life. You've got lives for themselves, tends to own their needs before others. Again, and it's not meant to be derogatory in that manner at all. It's just kind of a fact, it's more of like everybody has their things, right? So it's not that they're bad people by any means. They get things done. It's just they're different. Everybody's a little different, right? So embracing that and understanding, hey, yeah, I tend to live for myself and put my own needs before others. Doesn't mean I'm not a good mom. Doesn't mean that I don't, I'm probably a better mom in that I don't absorb myself in my kids. I make my own decisions to have my own lives. But at the same time, you have to look at the positive and the negative and understand that, it can go either way. I love the last ones. Life doesn't have any meaning. They believe in nothing. Do any of these strike a chord with any of you? Anybody out there? Is it possible to be a T at work and an F in your personal life? Yes, it is. I mean, you probably lean more to one thing, which my guess is how you are in your personal life is you're an F. And T is who you have to be at work. So you put that on. I'm kind of the opposite. I am a HR person, right? So I'm supposed to think about everybody and their feelings. And yet I'm really a T. So at work, I'm more F. At home, I'm definitely a T. Yeah, and get mad. Okay, I definitely think about others before making a decision and tend to get mad when others don't. Well, understand that others just think about it differently, right? But the reason we have our feelers is because we need people to think about others, but we also need people that can be very objective and look at a decision and not think about how each person would be affected by it, right? So there's a time and place for both. Good chat. Awesome. All right. So here's another couple fun ones. MBTI as people you know. What makes each MBI or what each MBTI type was made to do. Most likely similar to your calling. Whoops. Sorry about that. So these are all fun, just, digging in there. How many do we have? Some INFJs? INFJ? I am. Yep. Okay. Awesome. Often they're like nursing, they're the caretakers of the group, right? not very like orderly, but at the same time, very much about others and put others way before themselves. All right, so any questions? I guess I'll open it up for questions about MBTI types before we go into the Enneagram. All right, well, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the Q&A or enter them in the chat. Now let's go on a little bit different perspective and go explore the Enneagram. So the Enneagram was based on some ancient teachings and is often, it's more of understanding understanding yourself and who you are and what makes you, you know, where it comes from, often based in childhood, things that you experience, childhood trauma, those types of things. So it's based on these 9 types, and they're all interrelated, which is quite fascinating, actually. Now, when you took the Enneagram test, did any of you buy the full description of yourself? I know it was like, maybe it was 25 or maybe, I don't think it was 100, but if you have the money to do it, trust me, you should do it because it is so in depth, even more so than the MBTI. And I know some people struggle with it because it doesn't necessarily connect with them. And if it didn't connect with you, it's probably not worth buying it. But if you read the short description of your number and you were like, oh my gosh, that's so scarily me, buy the full thing because it goes into deep, deep stuff that is quite interesting. So psychiatrists began using this in the 1900s. A lot of teachers use it. The type is formed in childhood and doesn't change, similar to MBTI. It's based on major concerns or major, a mindset. There's 3 centers. You've got your heart centers, which are 3 types, your head centers, and your gut centers. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Knowing which center your personality falls in will help you in determining your type and where your strengths and weaknesses lie. So again, there is no right or wrong of either of these or any of these nine numbers. And you might be in between a number, and I'm going to explain that a little bit in a minute. So what numbers do we have out there? Does everybody want to go ahead and chat their number? 88889 28219. Okay, that's crazy. Lots of 8s. 395. All right. Okay, so our heart types. So it's the core is the heart. This is a 2, 3, or 4. Typically, it's emotion-based, relationship-focused. So I'm guessing if you were an INFJ, you're most likely a 2, 3, or 4. And there are things out there that will show like your Myers-Briggs type next to your Enneagram type. So it's quite fascinating. INFJ and an 8. Okay. That's pretty cool. Unique. A 4 in every test I've taken. Anybody that, like, I know Coral and I have talked, and she every time she takes the Enneagram, it comes out a number, and neither one of us think it's really her number. Anybody run into that where you were like, yeah, that's not me at all? I got ENFJ 8. Okay. Anybody else? ENFJ, INFJ 9, ESTJ and 1. That's common. ENTJ 8, INFP 4. All right. Very interesting. ENTJ8. Okay, once you read a little bit more about it, like the initial description was kind of like, that's not really me. I gotcha. All right, so heart types react with emotion first. They connect with other people on an empathetic level. They make sense of the world by understanding their feelings about it. They are types that are guided by feelings connected to their emotional relationships with other people. They value things such as emotional support, recognition, inclusion. Types 2, 3, and 4 are the heart feeling types. So again, not better. There are caretakers more so. They're either being affected by someone's feelings, or they're affecting others' feelings. It's often what they say. So then you have types 5, 6, and 7. Now these are the head center. It's a intellectual mindset. React first, reflect later. Instinctual intelligence. These types, they reflect on the world and their experiences. They live a lot in their head. They can be anxious or withdrawn due to their inward focus on understanding. Anything they are confronted with, it's more rooted in analysis. That's the first thing they go to, is analyzing the situation. Again, they connect on an intellectual level and make sense of the world by understanding the systems and the theories that underlie what they observe. So they're looking for the process in it. Think of engineer. That would be most likely a 5, 6, or 7. These types are primarily focused on control, which they gain by maintaining stability, security, and competence. So then we have the gut feelers. These are 1, 8, and 9s. So they react first, reflect later. They're more about how their body feels with people. So they connect with other people based on their physical sense of comfort. They make sense of the world by sensing their body's reaction to what is happening. Their primary drive is to maintain their independence, limit their control from outside influences. They respond by being either overly controlling, overly passive, or overly perfectionistic. So, and that's in their stress states, right? So we all have, regardless of what type you are, you can counteract the tendencies of the type by being more aware of it. It's typically when you're stressed that the negatives come out of it, the overly controlling, overly perfectionistic. And they even describe like a type 1 as perfectionist. So I did have them send out the other Enneagram descriptions of each type, just the short, and I also put the link in there that you can click on and go even more in depth to, and it's quite interesting. So one thing with Enneagram is, like I said, it's all based on that circle, right, with the 9 at the top. So the types are on either side of each core type, so are called your wings. So if you're a 7, your wings are 6 and 8. In this case, they're a 9, their wings are 8 and 1. So the wings represent related personality styles, which we can transition into in order to develop new facets of ourselves. Many people identify strongly with the description of one or both of their wings, in addition to their primary type, and understanding the influence of the Enneagram wings can help to add more of a better understanding of themselves. So each basic type is also connected by 2 lines. And as you can see on the connection side, so a type 1 has let me just move this. Their repressed type, or their early underdeveloped type, is a 7. So oftentimes their negative tendencies, their stress tendencies will look more like a 7, versus the 4 is what they could become, right? So if they're well developed, well self-aware, high emotional intelligence, they're probably relating closer to a 4. So that first line represents the type which the person is left behind or repressed in childhood. And those characteristics have to be reintegrated in a more developed manner as you get older, more mature, so that you can get to your full potential, which would likely be closer to a 4, the characteristics of a 4, or a higher state of development. So again, I am not an expert. I do not claim to be an expert on Enneagram. I found it very fascinating. And it dives a little deeper than the Myers-Briggs. So if you decide, you want to buy that report, it's definitely something that I would recommend if you related to your type, because it is quite fascinating. When I first took the Enneagram, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. This is like, whoa, just mind blowing on how accurate it was. I had my neighbors take it. I had my husband take it, my child take it. I had everybody take it, and it was crazy. Just the similarities and the conversations we had about it was quite interesting. So in the end, the whole point here is the more you know about you, the more you will understand others. And in turn, you will make better decisions, build better relationships, and have a better understanding of who you are and what you can become. So do the connections ever change? Or if I'm a 3, my repressed is automatically a 6 and a potential a 9? Well, the connections don't necessarily change, but if you're certain percentages, so when they look at your wings or your repressed, it will show on your, if you buy the full report, it will tell you how much, like what percentage you are of that. And you'll see that if you don't quite relate to a 3, you're like, whoa, that's really not at all anything that relates to me. It may be that there's certain underlying things within there, and it's hard to tell, but I believe it's just a matter of how much, what percentage of the repressed you are versus what percentage of the overdeveloped or higher level development you are. So, any other questions out there? Anything I can answer? Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Oh, I got one question. Here we go. We often use Myers-Briggs and the plethora of other personality tests in hiring and determining the right fit for a position and ultimately the company. I recently watched the HBO documentary called Persona, The Dark Truth Behind Personality Tests. It explores the unexpected origins of America's obsession with personality testings. It looks at profound ways that ideas about personality have formed the world around us and its ethical issues. Have you seen this? Actually, what's funny is, so obviously being an MBTI certified instructor, I get emails from there and the CEO of, or the head of the MBTI Institute sent an email regarding that documentary and said, just so you know, there was no MBTI experts at all considered or even consulted when they did that, which is kind of interesting. So I have not seen it, although now that you gave me the exact name, I'm going to go watch it. But obviously different takes on that. I know that they didn't consult them or get any of the facts from somebody who actually knows the MBTI ins and outs, detailed, certified. But again, very interesting perspectives from either side. Any other questions out there?
Well, I don't see any more questions, so I think we're going to wrap this up.
Awesome.
Adrielle, thank you so much for your time. If anyone has any questions after the presentation, feel free to reach out to Amanda at the chamber or myself, and we can get you with Adrielle, or she does have her email shared. So thank you. And again, thanks to our sponsors, Indiana, Michigan Power, and Gibson. And I hope you all have a good rest of your day.